Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all having a great day. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Surprise, right? We've been getting a lot of dip news. If you don't know what dip news is, every single time that there's a drop in Bitcoin's price, we are constantly receiving news of whales buying, institutions buying, and other random wallet addresses out there who are also purchasing coins at the exact same time. So it is unsurprisingly surprising that we're getting even more dip news. What? Isn't that crazy that rich people are always constantly buying the rarest asset that we've ever seen on the planet? Why would they be doing that? It's almost like they're trying to make money from it or something like that. I can't figure it out. Maybe you can. MicroStrategy, the largest corporate holder of Bitcoin, is again buying the dip. What? When has that ever happened before? That's crazy. What's such a big gap? There we go. On Monday, the software firm and Bitcoin development company announced in Q1 of 2024 their financial results and took the opportunity to note that they actually purchased even more Bitcoin since the end of March amid a rough few weeks for the cryptocurrency market. We normally would get MicroStrategy news, 3 times a year, maybe a good 3 times of purchases. For some reason, since the beginning of this year, they've been in the news around 7 or 8 times. And I don't mean like miscellaneous news, like MicroStrategy was walking down the street or something like that. I mean, it's like Bitcoin purchase news. This one seems very specific. When you hear the number, it kind of makes sense as to why they purchased this amount of coins, because there were also some discrepancies there as well, and I got a little, just a little annoyed. MicroStrategy purchased an additional 122 Bitcoin for a total of $7.8 million between the 1st of April and the 26th of April, according to the report. So here's the annoying part that every single article made sure to note, and I quote, it says, "While that's smaller than many of the company's previous Bitcoin buys over the years, and they drop in the ocean compared to the overall stash, it does push the company's holdings up to a new all-time level." The amount of articles I saw that kept on writing that 122 Bitcoin was not a large amount of Bitcoin, you people are delusional. If MicroStrategy had purchased even just one, you understand how rare Bitcoin is? Were you there for that video where we were talking about once again the news that no one seemed to care about because people are only paying attention to where Bitcoin's price is on any given day? Do you know what happened immediately 1 second after the halving took place? Like a literal second, not like a fake second, like whoop, 1 second went by. Do you know what happened? Bitcoin became the most scarce asset on the planet. It is twice as scarce as gold right now. That is to say, through the inflation rate of gold, which we know is actually a lot higher. But the numbers that we've been given, Bitcoin is doubly as rare as gold. Like gold. Like the thing that people have been using for thousands of years in jewelry and in their teeth and other places where people put gold. Do you understand that if you even purchased one Bitcoin out of a total 21 million, that'll take another 115 years to get from the computers? You understand how lucky you are to have that one Bitcoin? You know what it means for a company to purchase 122 Bitcoin at one time? That's what I was saying before. Everyone in the market's so desensitized to constantly hearing these large, gigantic numbers. When you hear that BlackRock is in the space and that BlackRock has 11.97 million bajillion trillion dollars under their belt under management, when you hear only $7 million worth of Bitcoin, you go, And I say this in the nicest way possible, the nicest way that my brain can put it together. A lot of people who write these articles, and once again, do you have $7.8 million to just throw into Bitcoin? Right. So when we keep saying that these numbers aren't anything special, and I also blame social media, the amount of people I see constantly posting things like, well, I make $300,000 per month. And it's like, yeah, but you also grew up with money. So you had the connections to be able to. That wasn't something random. Like, I've seen your house, I've seen your parents, and they looked bougie from the very beginning. 122 Bitcoin is an enormous amount of Bitcoin, especially from a company who said that they're never selling. That's tens of thousands, if not 100,000 plus people on the planet who will never be able to have that 0.003 Bitcoin ever. It's never, ever going to happen for them. This is still quite substantial as MicroStrategy holds an egregious amount of Bitcoin. So of course, this was very popular news, but I thought it a little bit odd that every single website made sure to have a portion where they were like, it's not as much as before, and it's not as impressive, but at least they bought, and it's like, do you understand that MicroStrategy is not the only company? I'm trying. Okay, whatever. We're going to move on because as of Friday, MicroStrategy now holds 214,400 Bitcoin. The mind tells you, and you hear it as $214,400. No, 214,000. Once again, this is one company. They officially hold more than 1% of all the Bitcoin that could ever be, while people are still not understanding and grappling with the idea that around anywhere from 3 to 6 million Bitcoin are lost and gone forever. Just want to throw that back out there for people who forgot. 214,000 Bitcoin is currently worth $13.5 billion. So of course, anytime MicroStrategy is in the news, it ends up becoming very popular. People are also talking about the blah, 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 and the so-and-so and the yada yadas. They've been buying a lot of Bitcoin this year. I assume the exact number of 122 Bitcoin was to round out this number. The number before, it didn't look crazy, but I assume there's some kind of an OCD going on there. Because why would you buy 122 to make sure that this was a round number, air quote, if you will? The rich people continue to buy the dip. The other wallet addresses that have been buying 100 to hundreds of Bitcoin per day, they're still out there, always buying more and more Bitcoin. Hope everyone's paying attention, simply because we will live in a world very soon where Bitcoin is over 100,000. I'm holding back saying the number 500,000 because I think that shocks too many people. But when Bitcoin's value is worth more than a home, is worth more than a house, I want you to remember these moments where we saw these companies buying huge amounts of Bitcoin and exactly how rich they're going to be and Bitcoin holders are going to be in the future. There's a reason why they don't stop buying ever. And even when prices go down, a lot of the misconception has also been that there are certain ETFs that have not had any inflows. And then you look at the ETFs that have had inflows, and on certain days, the number literally is like 38 million, maybe like $74 million worth of inflows. And people were like, well, it's not as much as the 600 million before. And it's like, yeah, but they're still buying up the entire amount of Bitcoin that was mined that day. And that's just 2 or 3 ETFs. That's not the MicroStrategy. That's not the Jack Dorseys. That's not the Tethers who are also buying. People also forget that Tether owns an enormous amount of Bitcoin, and they're going to be buying again very soon during Q2. And I'm also missing like 900 other companies, and also Morgan Stanley and everyone else who's also trying to get into the space, and also the banks. So yeah, that's the micro. What? Why would they do that? Why would MicroStrategy be buying more Bitcoin? I mean, I'm confused. I myself can't figure it out. Also tying, I guess, lightly into it as well. Cathie Wood is back in the news, the CEO of ARK Invest. She used to be in the news like every other day. Maybe she took a very long nap. I cannot imagine having billions of dollars and just like working all the time. Just be sleeping and eating. What do rich people eat? Macarons all the time. Cathie Wood was recently, I don't know why I said macarons, I'm hungry. Cathie Wood was recently at the Hong Kong Web3 Festival, where she basically said that she believes that Bitcoin is going to $1.5 million by 2030. I think this is even higher than her previous number. Cathie Wood with Mr. Novogratz and Raoul Pal, and there's one other person. Michael Saylor. There we go, the guy from MicroStrategy. They all are of the mindset that Bitcoin by the year 2029 will be over 700. That like 700,000 is their bearish number for Bitcoin, as we will have then undergone yet another halving, and Bitcoin will be even rarer than it currently is right now. But a lot of the predictions is that by 2030, Bitcoin will literally be everywhere. Nearly everything will be priced in Bitcoin, and we will see the great migration of money. Because when Bitcoin basically goes to 1 million, the next step is 5 and 10 million. It basically means that Bitcoin is beginning to take over everything in finance, and it leads us up to the illustrious one day $100 million per Bitcoin theory, at least. So this also, I want to say, turned heads and more turned articles. There were a lot of people who were discussing this and being like, oh my gosh, why would she say that? It's because she's really into Bitcoin, and I assume she's been going through the numbers. And if everyone has the same exact charts, you're going to start saying the exact same numbers over and over again. I don't think people are ready for $1 million Bitcoin. Like, I don't think mentally people are going to be okay when that happens. What's that? What's it called? No, this isn't hindsight. I was thinking like hindsight is 2020. This is more like devastation is 50-50. It's kind of like a, you know how, well, at least for me, I mean, and it's across like everything that I do. I still collect comic books. Like, I love comic books. People think sometimes I'm collecting random comic books. I only collect keys, like really big keys. First Miles Morales, first X-Men, like things like that, different languages. I love collecting comics. And I always have this kind of situation where I'm like, 5-10 years ago, if only I had paid attention when this issue first came out and bought more of it. Same exact thing with housing. I'm like, oh gosh, why didn't I get into the property market at this point? That kind of thing. I think the level of devastation that's going to roll through the planet, if we in 2030, if one Bitcoin is $1.5 million, Bitcoin's price in 2020, I think, didn't Bitcoin fall down to 8,000 because of Coco Roro? I remember Ethereum went down to like 80 or something like that, and I was like, whoa. I remember Bitcoin fell down very, very low. If people look back and they go, I could have afforded 8,000 and made 1.5 million, I think it's gonna be people not gonna be too happy with themselves, kind of thing. So, but I mean, this is the way that I think the world always works. I think personally, this is me, that when we hit a $100,000 Bitcoin, there's still gonna be skeptics. When we get to $500,000 per Bitcoin, there's still going to be people like, well, I'm still not buying it. I told you all before, like just perusing online or even on Instagram. I don't know why I keep getting stuff about gold. Someone's paying the algorithm. It's quite annoying. I keep seeing comments of people being like, I'm never buying Bitcoin. I'm only buying gold is the way. And I'm like, can you count? I'm not being mean, but it's like, numbers, right? 70,000 is higher than 2,000 something or other. It's just this really weird. Why so much resistance? Why, like, what are you fighting? The air? Like what are you swinging at? It just doesn't make any sense. I can't imagine myself a situation where I'm like, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to buy that thing. And it's like, no, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll admit it. And I'll be like, okay, cool. Well, let me get some now before I'm completely wrong, 10 years in the future. Anyway, completely off course. Yeah, Cathie Wood is also in the news. And I say it ties in lightly to the other one because it appears the festival is back. The news of buying the dips, it's always kind of the same. Whenever we have a 2 or 3 week period of prices going down, if you've been here for longer than 2 years, I'm sure you're shaking your head like, yup, it's always been the same. Prices go down, people get sad, the rich are buying, prices begin to move. And then we start getting all this, we bought the dip. We're even richer than before. Look how much richer we are than you kind of news. And then all these people with price predictions. There's also been tons of price predictions still. They haven't stopped. It's just more of a, they're still kind of the same numbers. The $150,000 Bitcoin is still there for 2024 from the analysts. And also the mega ultra crazy Optimus Prime bull run for 2025. So, yeah, that's the Cathie Wood news. Phantasmagorical. And yeah, let's move on. What? That's crazy. After an overwhelming response to the launch of Bitcoin ETFs within the United States, issuers are now eyeing the Australian market. That's crazy. I would have never expected that. Van Eck Associates Corporation and Beta Shares Holding PTY property, have lined up for the listing of spot Bitcoin ETFs within Australia. According to sources familiar with the matter, ASX Limited, a key player in Australia's equity trading landscape, is likely going to green light the country's first spot Bitcoin ETFs by the end of 2024. Do they know that money doesn't work that way? Okay. The individuals who preferred to remain anonymous due to confidentiality of the information disclosed this information. Beta Shares, headquartered in Sydney, is actively progressing towards the launch of a product of the ACX, so and it basically keeps going on in a circle. Yeah. So what do we have now? We have the US ones which launched. We have the ones in Hong Kong that also just recently launched a couple of days ago. For those of you who missed the news after the Hong Kong launching, there's another company in Singapore who's partnering with the Hong Kong Bitcoin spot ETFs to list them in Singapore as well. We got news a month ago at this point that the German stock market also has, I believe, Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. What was the other one? And apparently people within Europe will have access to the ETFs through the German market, yada, yada, yada. What was the other country? Oh, there's like one or two more who also announced that they also recently are doing Bitcoin ETFs as well. And now we also have Australia in the fray. So the idea of them is spreading quite quickly. It just makes a lot of sense if you are an asset manager or any type of person who's trying to make money. And you cannot hear the numbers, $500 million in daily inflows and go, I'm glad that they're making money, and not try and think of doing the exact same thing yourself. So a lot of and I'll say it this way, a lot of the equations and analyses that we were getting before for Bitcoin's price did not include any of these things. If you remember, all the price predictions of a $150,000 Bitcoin were simply based off of the accumulation levels of BlackRock and Fidelity. They never counted in MicroStrategy. They never counted in Tether. They never counted in all the other companies who were buying. They never counted in Mr. 100. And they also did not, because we didn't have the information back then, they did not account for Australia having spot ETFs, neither Hong Kong, neither Singapore, and the other countries who were also trying to get the same exact thing with Germany. So I still think we're in for a very wild ride. Yeah, not too much more to go into here. It's more of we will probably have by the end of this month another 3 countries who are also we're also trying to launch them as well. And then cumulatively at some point, we will see, what do you call it? How much money is flowing into these things like daily and weekly and monthly. And I think that's going to set a lot of people off when they realize finally that there's not a lot of Bitcoin really going around. So yeah, that's the Australia to approve spot Bitcoin ETFs by the end of the year. I guess that could also mean a little bit before. Maybe there's a lot of paperwork to do. And yeah, let's move on. In also very popular news, electric automobile manufacturer Tesla says it did not sell a single Bitcoin from their large holdings in the first quarter of this year. Tesla has a portfolio of 9,720 Bitcoin after selling off 75% of their holdings in 2022. The current Bitcoin holding is approximately $711 million US. For those of you who missed the absolutely devastating news in 2022. We had news that Tesla had bought some Bitcoin, causing the price to jump because everyone thought that Elon Musk was going to endgame Iron Man it and, completely save the world. And then we had news that they actually ended up selling some of their Bitcoin, but they said or claimed that the reason why they did it is that they wanted to see if the market would react to their selling without the market knowing. Let me explain. Basically, they said the entire idea was to sell some of their Bitcoin without announcing it to see if the market would go down in price, and it did not while they were selling because no one noticed. The market only reacts whenever they get some kind of crazy, sad news, and everyone else tells their friend to also be sad because Muskie sold off some of his coins. So since then, for whatever reason there might be, people are constantly looking at looking at the holdings of Bitcoin from Tesla, and people act euphoric online when they find out that Tesla did not sell any of their Bitcoin through every single quarter. So, you know how MicroStrategy usually is the most popular news? Guess what? Not today, buddy boy. Not even the news of other ETFs launching around the world. It was Tesla and Bitcoin. They did not sell. Fantastic. That's wonderful for them. Don't really know where else to go except for, I guess, forward. So that's the Tesla didn't sell any of their Bitcoin news. I imagine people will lose their bananas if Tesla ever buys any more Bitcoin. So yeah, that's the Tesla news. Moving along. Also I guess maybe because it's Canada, I don't really know. I expected this news to be a little bit more, personally, expected it to be a little bit more popular. Simply because when we get numbers and numbers make sense, price should go up. However, many time we get news that makes sense and price move nowhere. Canada-based institutional investors have significantly increased their crypto exposure last year compared to the last bull run. A survey from accounting firm KPMG has revealed nearly 40% of institutional investors reported having direct or indirect exposure in crypto 2023, up from 31% in KPMG's 2021 study. The company, according to the report, The company according, okay, anyway, here's the actual numbers right here. They surveyed 65 very wealthy institutional investors. That is to say, either companies or individuals. They had 65 people who they surveyed who have more than $500 million in assets, while the remaining 34 were also financial organizations. And they found out that basically they all had increased their exposure to the cryptocurrency space. And once again, maybe it's because Michael Saylor's not standing on a stage screaming the word Bitcoin that this news wasn't popular, but it's impossible for me to keep hearing this news you know how bullish I am on this space? You know how much it hurts? Like, I can't get any more bullish. Like, my cup is completely full and people keep pouring more inside of it. And it's just this really weird, like, how many more indications do you need to know that rich people are buying before you are like completely bullish on the space? That's a real question. And I ask simply because I always want to know, like, what more do you need mentally to really lock in and be like, okay, this is something big? Do you need, and then hear me out here. Do you need Jamie Dimon to say that he loves Bitcoin to really get it? Do you need to have lunch with Warren Buffett for like $4 million? And then he's like, oh yeah, Bitcoin makes sense now. Like, what's the thing that you need to actually click? Even this number right here, which also was underreported, 75% of these institutions own crypto directly versus 29% of them 2 years before. 2 years before, 29% of these institutions owned Bitcoin directly, and now it's 75%. There's a difference between direct exposure and indirect exposure. Direct is like you have been buying Bitcoin off of a cryptocurrency exchange, and indirect would be from an ETF. Anyway, yeah, constantly, always. I mean, this space needs to be studied. It's quite constant that we get like rich people buying or having been buying or more exposure news. And I said earlier, maybe it's because it's Canada. It's because I've noticed over the course of years, we can get news that a company in, not joking, like 3 companies, one in Zimbabwe, one in New Mexico, rather Mexico. Mexico is a place. Mexico, and one in like Australia collectively bought 1 million Bitcoin. And people will go, oh, well, yeah, I mean, I guess. And then we hear that one in like Colorado bought like 15,000 Bitcoin and the price goes up by like 12% that day. I don't understand the mindset. I sincerely don't, especially as crypto is like a worldwide phenomenon. But yeah, quite weird. So I thought this news was cool. Continuing to see the continued exposure to crypto and Bitcoin and how much more they're all buying, and you know, just a heads up that rich people are still buying crypto because they're expecting it to go to $1.5 million per coin. So at some point it's probably going to news. Yeah. Hope you've all been well. I know it's been a weird couple of weeks in general, like not only just in crypto, but kind of in everything. So, yeah, I think that's going to do it for this video. I do hope that you have all enjoyed. I do hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.